Today, I'm excited to feature Rich Mollin, an internationally accomplished bassist, bandleader, and educator with a career spanning over 4 decades. From leading dynamic jazz trios in Manhattan to performing across genres on prestigious cruise lines, Rich has worked alongside some of the industry's finest talents. Currently heading one of the largest bass studios in the SUNY system, he continues to inspire the next generation of musicians while performing with his groups like the Catskill Symphony Orchestra. So, Rich, good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me, Abe. It's nice to meet you, as it were.
Yeah, absolutely. So Rich, ironically, the way we met is it's actually pretty funny because I have a couple friends who went to the school that you teach at, one being Jeff Mann, the drummer, and when he
Mm,
was a student there, he used
mm.
to always mention your name, believe it or not. And I remember that name, Rich Mollin.
How
So,
kind.
and then I was performing up in upstate, and you happened to just kind of be there, checking out the music and stuff. And then we met in person, and it was like, oh, like full circle now. So, and you've been an educator for such a long time, and
Indeed.
there's so many teachers out there. But in order to keep pushing forward, we really need to, you know, push the students. So, what do you think it is that the students should know most importantly before they get into this business?
Wow. Well, first of all, perhaps not to consider it a business, but an art form that deserves respect and attention and a lot of hard work, and maybe the expectation of commercializing it is not the end result. Um they have to love it, first of all. I think most of my students over the years are there because it's an elective. It's not required of them unless they were double bass or electric bass majors. Uh, I think just the love of it and the infinite challenge that it represents. And pedagogically, I think it's very similar to how we learn everything. It's sequential. It's sometimes it's exponential. Sometimes you have revelations, right? There's ups and downs with it. And I'm careful to tell my students not to judge themselves on how they play right now. We work on this on a long-term basis, and few of us, even those who people think are accomplished, few of us are really satisfied with where we are. Otherwise, why continue?
Yeah, I mean it's a journey. It's a lifelong journey. If you're a musician and a true artist and want to make this your life, you've got to know there's no stopping point and you just have to keep pushing.
That's right.
And we were talking before we started this interview about some of your past relationships as far as being a performer. Now, I've always think that performing is a challenge. Even though I love it, it's still hard for a lot of different reasons. It's so rewarding though. But when you're performing, what is a challenge for you still to this day, even after 4 decades?
The challenge is to aesthetically please myself as well as the audience, and to feel that I'm still on that upward trajectory, that there's still growth to be had. And when people ask me, what was your best gig? I'm hoping it's the next one.
Yeah.
Uh, and probably it was the last one, if I look back retrospectively. Uh, I just think it's an endless quest. Classical music and jazz both require a certain level of, I won't say virtuosity all the time, but high levels of attention and detail orientation. And I keep my foot in the classical music just to help me organize my thinking when I'm playing creatively. And most of my gigs are jazz gigs. I would say 95% of my gigs are jazz gigs, and probably 95% of those are double bass gigs, and probably of those more than half where I get to be the leader.
Let me
Uh,
ask you this. When you're talking about, the growth that you keep having continuously. Now, let's just say, like, we categorize the last 5 years of where you are on the instrument or something. Is it changed over those 5 years, or you still kind of feel you have that same mindset when going into play like that? You know who you are and what you want to do. Has it shifted all in the last couple years, or is it still the same
it,
thing?
it has shifted. It shifted in accordance with the people I was working with. more demanding expectations, people evaluating things after gigs. It's sometimes dangerous to just judge it, but sometimes it's helpful to critique these things very carefully afterwards, and recording gigs and recording episodes, all these sessions. I've had great learning experiences the last 6 years with a few people. Dr. Mark Kramer, who I worked with for a few years, was very helpful, very inspirational. Uh, and that's the most recent thing. I've been working for about 10 years with a trumpet player and being responsible as a bass player for all the melodies and
Oh, so you play the melodies, or he
and,
put
un-
it
and
together?
unaccompanied choruses, and really trying to fill out the band, as it were, with the two of us. And we've done this now over 800 times. Uh, so that's been helpful, going through the songbook, as it were.
The Great American Songbook.
Yeah,
I love hearing about this. You say 800 gigs. It
yeah.
probably does. Does it feel like that, or is it still just maybe? Does it feel like just one big, or maybe 10? I mean, that's a lot. That's
Everyone is fresh.
hmm
There's very little discussion now at this point. We used to rehearse a couple times a week and just sort out all these variety of bebop melodies and harmonies, and try to make some musical sense with it. At this point, we get together and we've maintained a steady Friday gig for 8 years. COVID interrupted things a little bit. Uh, but yeah, that's what's going on. I think it's different every time. There, of course, are similarities. Sometimes the music, you think it's so familiar, yet it's so different every time, and that's the joy of this music for me.
yeah. I mean, is would you say that the performing is what you're most grateful for in your career, or would it be the educational components? Is it equal? Is it equal? Like what's the most fulfilling for you?
I would have to say they're equally satisfying, and
Yeah.
it's very rewarding to have students who go on and cite my influence as I had to cite others' influence in my life. Um, it's in perpetuity, right? We keep this going, and we try and uphold a tradition. I don't feel like I'm a museologist, as it were, but I'm definitely upholding a tradition, and I'm on the shoulders of giants. I have no delusions of grandeur. I never tried to present myself as anything other than a journeyman working in this art form, and happy to be associated with some of these great talents I get to work with.
Well, yeah, I remember Jeff Mann used to tell me that he would do gigs with you at the hotel.
I remember doing a few with him. Yes,
Yeah,
great.
he was young, he was younger, and we were probably Jeff and I are probably around the same age. He's maybe a couple of years older, but you know, when you bring a young musician on the bandstand to perform professionally and give them that opportunity, you are putting them on that same level as being a journeyman, as you're saying. And
Very true.
when you're, even though they might be a little younger and not as experienced, are you hoping that they develop their own voice, maybe learn some things along the way, or just play and have fun, you think?
I think it's all three of those things, and developing their voice is something that happens almost intuitively over time. Uh, the few that I've taken on jobs with me were well deserving of it. As you know, Jeff is a special talent. As
He was
that.
special in eighth grade.
Yeah, well, he was right. He was just a special, inspirational talent. I've had the good fortune of working with many students who have inspired me by their work ethic and their growth, and seeing the curve, having them come in that first semester and being really green, and then leaving and going on, and some of them getting doctorates, etc.
Yeah, well, that's the thing too. I've had some teachers. I'm not going to mention any names, but I almost feel like as some successful things happened to me, they weren't supportive. Maybe they said some things that made it seem like I was undeserving of them, believe it or not. And I think that's really a tragedy at the end of the day because if your student excels, you're excelling too. You taught them,
Indeed,
right?
indeed. Discouragement is very dangerous and very powerful, especially at the in young ages. You know,
Well, did you face discouragement or criticism from any teachers when you were, coming up that maybe you had to rise above it and keep pushing?
it's interesting you say that. Most of my discouragement has come in later years.
Really?
Yeah, I had a lot of teachers in my youth say, "Oh, you love this too much. You're doomed, and we're just going to set you off on the path, and you'll be fine." Uh, but as standards of excellence were expected more and more as I became, I'm in my 60s now. By the time I got 50, people expect you to really have your act together somewhat, uh,
We
and
never
that's
really have our act together though, right? No matter
I
what.
don't know that I ever will, but I'm enjoying the process.
Yeah,
I
you're
get
going
to
to enjoy it. You're going to go to a gig and then someone's going to say like, "Let's play this tune," and you're going to say, "I played that tune so many times, but right now I don't remember the bridge off the top of my head."
Yeah, that happens too. That's right. That's right.
But yeah, I think keeping a light heart about it is, and that's what I've come to learn as, I'm getting a little older now, is that, being lighthearted and being able to just almost laugh at these little mistakes that happen, makes the wound not as deep, so to speak.
Yeah, again, it's who we choose to play with. Some people are very hypercritical, and there's a lot to be learned from that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then there's something to be said for the very forgiving side of some players.
Let me ask you this, Rich. I'm actually, I'm, you seem like this would be a good question to ask. When you like, I'm just kind of curious about musical keys. Let's say you have to play on like a one chord open vamp. Uh, like, would you choose a dominant key, a minor key, or major key, and what key would it be? Like, if you could have one key every day, what would it be, you think?
I hadn't considered that. I try to treat them all with equal reverence. Uh, uh, I'm a big fan of E flat today,
I could have sworn
and
you were going
and
to say E flat. I'm not joking.
and E flat, just a flat three, ascending melodic. That's right.
Okay, so E
That's
flat.
that's for the moment. It could be, and it changes, and it's mercurial.
Yeah. Well, are you what's it called? Are you exploring some new things that you could share with us on the instrument? This instrument is, you have to keep your chops up. Anything with your hands, you can't slack, so to speak.
Well, that's true. I mean, there's the old adage, especially in the symphony world, where you take a day off, you know it. You
Hmm.
take 2 days off, your section mate knows it. You take 3 days off, everyone knows it. So yeah, we keep plugging away at it. What I'm working on particularly, uh, trying to carve my own way through these tunes. We have so many influences. I was very influenced as a youth by, of course, Jocko and Miroslav and Stanley and all the icons of my gen, Gary Peacock and Eddie Gomez, and to take this information and then put it on the bass, and Niels Pedersen, all these people changed my view of what was possible and what was expected of me as a bass player. So I had some wonderful mentors, and what I'm working on is making musical sense.
Yeah.
I would say.
You said you gained some things from listening to certain players. Um, can I ask you about Jimmy Garrison? Because that's someone who, one of my favorite bass players. So, did you gain a lot of insight listening to him?
I did. I'll tell you my feeling with the Jimmy Garrison recordings I heard. All these Coltrane things, etc. Sometimes the bass wasn't prominent enough in the mix for me.
Hmm.
Watching the videos, I saw a lot of double stop activity that made me think, uh, just very strong groove oriented player whom I liked a lot. And I got to speak to a few times as well.
You got to speak to Jimmy Garrison?
I did, yeah.
Oh, please talk about that. There's not one interview of him online, not one.
Basically, said thank you for your contribution. Ran
Yeah.
into him. It was back in the days, 20 something years ago. I participated in a variety of these IAJE conventions. They used to be the International Association of Jazz Educators, and they'd be held in Manhattan. And it would be the who's who of jazzers that would attend. So I got to mill about, and he was one of the few I got to speak to. Uh, I didn't glean anything directly from it, and nor did I get to play his bass. But I did get to play a lot of wonderful bass players' instruments and spend time with them and take lessons from them. And I keep learning. I keep learning every day. I'm from all genres.
Wait, 20 years ago, it's got to be more than that, because,
Okay, it might be a little more than
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Okay, might be right. Okay, somewhere around there. That's right.
Yeah. So as far as what's it called? The gigs you're doing today, do you have anything this weekend that you're looking forward to doing that's gonna
I have
you're
things
preparing?
every week. I have things every weekend I'm looking forward to. They're great challenges. This weekend, uh, this Friday, I'm sorry, this Saturday, I'm with Tony Romano, wonderful guitar player from
I'm
New York City.
interviewing him in January.
So okay, it's a small world there. So I'm with him this weekend. Next week is Catskill Symphony Week, so I have a folder of music to put my mind through. It's nice, I really enjoy that stuff. Also, takes us out of our own head, gives us something very concrete and black and white to work on, and being in tune and being in time never goes out of fashion. I don't care what style of music it is, really.
Do you have certain standards that, I mean, you got to have a couple of top favorites, I'm sure.
Yeah, I have lots of them. You mean,
If it's your gig and you are playing, let's say you hire me to play a gig with you, what's the first tune we're gonna play?
just friends?
Okay, that's a good one.
That's a good one. There's so many.
But that'll be
Uh,
the first. That will be the first one, though.
that'll be the first one.
Okay.
Would you like the second one too?
No, no, yeah. Let's hear the second one, please.
Let's see. Uh, Up with the Lark.
I don't know that one off the top of my head.
Okay. Um, yeah, the list goes on. There's so many. It's a lot of fun, isn't it, to just plow through all this material?
There's so much of it. It just never gets old. That's the thing. It's just when can this get? Yeah, it just doesn't stop. Um, as far as non-musical things that just influence your approach to music, are there any of those you could share with us? Maybe any books or life events or places you've traveled or movies, stuff like that you take from?
Wow. It's many, many things. I was fortunate to do quite a bit of world travel at one point in my life. And growing up downstate, I always thought of upstate New York as a camping adventure. So when I finally I had an agent that sent me to a hotel in Cooperstown, New York, where I was there for 6 nights a week for 9 years, and I just loved it. I loved the topography. I
Did you know
loved
you probably knew the food menu like inside out too, right? Like
well, it kept changing. It kept changing,
it
and
kept
plus,
changing.
yeah, it was very nice. It was a very nice life. And then I bought a home in the area, and then I started teaching at SUNY Oneonta, and it's been 21 years now, and I don't regret leaving the metropolitan
Would you
area.
did
I
you ever
love
go up to like the Adirondacks, like the Lake George, Lake Placid area and do stuff?
it. I have a few times.
Yeah.
I used to play with a wedding band that went around, and I worked with a piano player whom we basically traversed New England, Adirondacks, and New Hampshire, and Vermont, and
Vermont.
Connecticut.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, but I guess what inspires me musically is the beauty around me. I live in what I think is paradise. I live in a restored church that I host sessions at, that I do recordings in, and my wife is a wonderful cook. and we do all sorts of things here. It's a lot of fun, and that's what
We could see the
inspires me.
we could see the windows behind you. So
Yeah, that's right. That's my little stage in my living room.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's a good place. That's like such a cool place to live. You know, you can't. I mean, what you can't get cooler than that.
it is. It's very inspirational. You ask me what feeds the music is all the chores I have to do to keep it going. Then I can appreciate making some notes.
How long have you been living there? And you said you had to restore some of it yourself,
Yeah,
or it was
this has been a 12 and a half year project as of now. Next year, I'm going to paint the outside and I'll call it done.
yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I lived in the woods before then for another 14 years in a remote location. Gave me a lot of time to practice in between gigs and teaching. Uh, but here I am in Oneonta. That's my inspiration. This wonderful community. I have a lot of music around me. I'm waiting for you to come up so we can do a gig around here.
Okay, I'm 100% down,
Good, good,
unquestionably.
good, good.
I somehow made my way up to Stamford, which is it's still close to you though, I think, right?
Yeah, I just played in Stamford on Saturday with the guitarist Jack Moorer, New York City guitar player.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure I've heard his name before, but there's a rich scene over there too. So there's a whole upstate scene that you know shouldn't really be discounted. It's got its own thing, just
It's
like
New
anywhere else.
York. It's New York ultimately, and it's very nice.
And as I've done a little traveling, and I think that no matter where you go, it does not matter, even the most remote place. There's great in the U.S. The in domestically, you'll find players who can do this music. You will find them.
I found myself out in University of Northern Iowa and University of Iowa, which was the headquarters of the International Society of Bassists when I went out there. So I marveled at all the fantastic bass playing and musicianship. And the Midwest, as you know, is another cold climate. People stay inside and practice a lot, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's definitely not the same as living in Miami or something. Um, so when you talk about playing the bass, you play both. You play electric and acoustic bass. Did that ever make you transition into doing any sort of cello or doing any violin by any chance, or you just were really just focused on the bass?
I've just been focused on the electric bass and the double bass. Really, double bass primarily the last 30 years, pretty much 90 plus percent. Before that, in the 80s, I made most of my living playing electric bass. That was the demand back then.
People wanted electric players in the 80s.
Well, it was the gigs I was doing, the commercial
Mhm.
gigs I was doing. Um, and then again, we find our voice. My voice was the double bass, and I've been fortunate enough to stay with it.
Well, I see a couple in the background.
Yeah, probably. Yep.
So how many? You have two?
No, I have seven basses
Oh my
floating around.
goodness.
Yeah.
No, that's great. But are they are they all used for different things? Like some like you would only take on a classical gig, but the others are, maybe you don't mind like if they get a little more banged up. Is it that type of
That's right.
relationship?
That's right. There's a gradation. That's right. Uh, I have a five-string double bass that I use a lot for. That's been my main go-to the last few years, and then I have standard four-string basses. Some of them are better suited to orchestral work. Some of them are better suited to jazz work. Uh, but I'm trying to narrow it down to the one or two because it is tough to jump around. They're all a little different. They all have a slightly different personality. They all have a slightly different string length too, measure, and there's things like that. But yeah, I've kind of boiled it down to two instruments that I play.
Yeah. And the acoustics where you live have got to be outrageous in that church. I can't even imagine.
Well, that's why I bought the place. When I met the realtor to view the place, I met him with my bass. He thought I was probably nutty. I came in there, and just started bowing in the middle of the stage. And I was like, this is the room. I'm
No,
staying right
I'm not sure if you know this. You know, I run a music school, so we do our recitals at a church, an old church that's that more than 100 or so years old. That and the acoustics there, it's just I don't I hope the parents appreciate what I'm like because the room just sounds so good. Even if you're just starting out, you can make music there.
Yeah, this room is from 1834.
Whoa.
It has a wonderful sound. I've had a lot of audio engineers come over here and really do some projects and really enjoy it. In fact, the head of the NYU audio program has been out here, and we have recorded.
Oh, really?
Maybe you know Paul Geluso.
I don't know him. I wasn't really involved in the recording at NYU too much. I didn't get to go to the studios. I probably should have gone, but that's really cool that he came out there and so Rich. I mean, this has been great. And where can people if they want to see where you're playing, what's the best way to reach out to you with social media, that sort of thing?
Yeah, the social media. I'm keeping it very simple on Facebook. I'll post the gigs that I want to post, and they're out there, and people can come see me anytime at SUNY Oneonta, where I've been for 21 years, and look forward to playing with you, Abe.
No, we need to do it. Absolutely.
Thank you for this. I appreciate
Of
this.
course.